When did calling someone's bluff completely backfire on them? I was 19, just finished school, getting ready to move abroad for university. My parents had been divorced for about a year, and my father, Victor, was paying child support, which by law in my country he owed until I turned 26 or could support myself. The amount was small, around 80 euros a month, but that was what they had agreed on in the divorce. And at the time, I had almost no expenses of my own, so I never complained. The problem started when I told him I was leaving. The country I was moving to was far more expensive than home, so I asked Victor if we could talk about raising the payments for the few years I would be studying. He said yes with no argument at all, and for about 2 weeks everything was fine. 2 weeks later, he messaged me out of nowhere, furious, accusing me of manipulating an old woman into spreading lies about him. What had actually happened was that my mother, Eva, had been walking our dogs and ran into the elderly mother of our neighbor, Ivana. Ivana was the woman Victor had been cheating with for more than 6 years while he was still married. Eva asked a few simple questions about how Victor and Ivana were living, just to see how much of what Victor had told us was a lie. I was not there. I did not ask her to do it. But in Victor's version, I was the mastermind who had weaponized a confused old lady, and he had already told half the family I was a liar before he asked me a single question. I told him it was hard to trust anything he said after 6 years of lying about Ivana. That set him off completely. He demanded an apology. I said I had nothing to apologize for. He went back and forth, telling me I was ungrateful, that other fathers paid nothing and walked away, and that the money was his to give and his to take. Then he gave me his final offer. Apologize in 24 hours, or he would cancel the higher payments and go back to the small amount, and if I had a problem with that, I could go get a lawyer and try to make him pay. He meant it as a dare. He was certain a 19-year-old would never actually do it, so I did. The next morning, I sat down with a family lawyer, Mr. Novak, signed papers giving him authority to act for me, and told him I wanted to take it to court. He said we did not need court yet. He said the smart first step was a formal letter on official letterhead, requesting a meeting to settle the support amount, and to let Victor sit with that letter for a few days. Then he explained something Victor had clearly never considered. Under our law, the support owed for a student abroad, based on Victor's real income, would be far higher than the modest increase I had asked for. I had been asking for less than the law would give me, and Victor's threat to drag this in front of a judge was the worst thing he could have done for himself. The letter went out. I never got to see Victor's face when it arrived, and that is honestly my only regret. The man who messaged me at night calling me a manipulator, the man who picked fights with strangers in parking lots, went very quiet. He called Mr. Novak's office, polite and cooperative, and asked when the meeting could happen. At the meeting, he was a completely different person. No shouting, no ultimatums, no demands for an apology. He signed the increased payments almost before Mr. Novak finished explaining them. He knew exactly what he was avoiding. If a judge had looked at his actual earnings and the cost of my studies abroad, Victor would have been ordered to pay much more. The same money he had tried to use as a leash was now locked in by a piece of paper, and there was nothing he could do about it. He paid the full amount on time for almost 2 years. No arguments, no guilt trips, no angry midnight messages. I had almost started to believe he had accepted it. Then a new letter arrived, not from Mr. Novak, from a different lawyer, Victor's lawyer. The language was specific. He was requesting a formal reassessment of the support agreement, claiming a significant change in his financial circumstances. I called Mr. Novak from the floor of my apartment abroad, reading the letter out loud, my voice climbing. He let me finish and said it was a standard request. Victor had the legal right to ask, but to actually get the payments reduced, he would need to prove a real, documented drop in income, with payslips, tax records, bank statements. The burden of proof was entirely on him. Then he asked if I knew of any major change in Victor's situation. I said no. From everything Eva told me, Victor was still at the same job, probably earning more, not less. Mr. Novak said either something real had happened that I did not know about, or Victor was gambling that I would not want to fight him again. Either way, we would respond formally and request full financial disclosure. I called Eva that evening. She was not surprised. She said Victor had been telling people he was broke. My aunt had already called her, saying Victor had told her he could barely afford food because of what I was making him pay. He was not just filing a request. He was building a story around it. He was going to family members one by one, telling them his own daughter was bleeding him dry. He was making me the villain before the fight had even started. A few days later, Victor called me directly. His voice was warm, almost soft. He said he did not want to fight. He just needed a small adjustment. Things had been tight. Could we talk? Just the two of us? Without lawyers? Because he was still my father. I hate admitting this, but something in me cracked when he said that. There was still a stubborn part of me that wanted a normal father. One who called to check in, who asked how my classes were going. And here he was, sounding like that father for the first time in years. He asked if we could meet when I came home for semester break. I said yes. I called Lola that night. Lola has been my best friend since we were kids, and she is the one person who has never told me what I wanted to hear just to make me feel better. When I told her I had agreed to meet Victor without Mr. Novak, she went quiet for 3 seconds, which for Lola is a long time. Then she said Victor had spent 6 years lying to my mother's face, and I thought he could not lie to mine for one afternoon. I tried to explain that he sounded different. She said I wanted to believe him because he was my dad, and that was exactly what he was counting on. I knew she was right, but I could not bring myself to cancel. Before we hung up, she made me promise not to sign anything without calling Mr. Novak first. I promised. The meeting was set for a Saturday at a small cafe near our old neighborhood, the kind with mismatched chairs and handwritten menus, somewhere we used to go when I was little. I got there early because I wanted to be the one already sitting down when he walked in. When he came through the door, the first thing I noticed was how tired he looked. He was thinner than I remembered, his face more lined, and for a second I forgot everything Lola had said. He came straight to my table and hugged me before I could even stand up properly. He held on a beat too long, his hand on the back of my head like he used to do when I was a kid. He waved the waitress over and ordered my favorite drink without asking. He just knew, and I noticed. He said things had been hard. Rent, food, electricity, all of it. He just wanted to go back to the original amount for a little while, until he could get back on his feet. He looked at me and said he was not trying to hurt me. He was asking his daughter for help. I asked him about his job. I wanted details, not because I was trying to catch him, but because I genuinely wanted a reason to believe him. He said the company had restructured and cut salaries across the board. He reached into his jacket and pulled held out a folded piece of paper. It was a letter from his employer, printed on company paper with a header and a signature, confirming his salary had been reduced as part of an internal restructuring. The numbers were specific. The language was professional. It did not look like something someone had made up at home. I put the paper down and felt guilty. Really, truly guilty. I thought about Lola. I thought about Mr. Novak preparing documents. And I thought, what if they are wrong? What if I am wrong? I could feel myself starting to bend. He must have seen it, because he relaxed a little. He started talking more freely. And that is when he made the mistake. He was talking about expenses, about how everything cost more than it used to. And he said, and you know, the house needs work. Ivana and I have been trying to fix the roof, and the costs are just... He trailed off. He caught himself half a second too late, but I heard every word of it. I said, you and Ivana are living together? The change was instant. Not in me, in him. His face went still. Not angry, just still. Like a screen someone had turned off. He said that was not what this was about, but I was already doing the math. I said, you told the court 2 years ago you were living alone. You listed only your expenses. If Ivana is living with you, that means you have been splitting costs the entire time, and your actual expenses are half of what you claimed. He did not deny it. He did not try to explain. He did not say Ivana had just moved in recently, or that it was temporary, or that it was complicated. He just sat there as the warmth drained out of his face like water running out of a sink. The tired, gentle father who had hugged me and ordered my favorite drink was gone. In his place was the Victor I actually knew. The real one. The one who planned every conversation 3 moves ahead and only showed you the version of himself that got him what he wanted. He looked at me and his voice was flat when he said, you sound just like your mother. And that was the moment I knew. I knew with total, complete certainty that this whole meeting was a show. The tired look, the long hug, the favorite drink he remembered, the pay cut letter he just happened to have in his pocket, all of it was staged. A performance designed to make me feel sorry for him and agree to a lower number before Mr. Novak could get anywhere near his actual finances. He was not asking his daughter for help. He was running a play on her. I put my hands flat on the table because they were shaking, and I said I was going to let my lawyer handle this. Victor did not blink. He said if I walked out, I should not expect him to be nice about it in front of the family. There it was, the real threat under all the softness. I stood up, picked up my bag, and walked out without saying goodbye. In my car, I called Mr. Novak and told him everything. The hug, the drink, the pay cut letter, and exactly what Victor had said about Ivana and the roof. Mr. Novak said not to worry about the letter. If Victor was cohabiting with Ivana and had not disclosed it, the reassessment would not go in his direction. It would go in mine. He told me to send him every detail I could remember, and he would draft our response that night. Then he said I had done the right thing by walking out. Mr. Novak filed our response within the week, including a request for full financial disclosure, household expenses, cohabitation status, and any shared assets. Victor had handed us the one thing we needed. The reassessment meeting was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In that time, my aunt called to tell me Victor was telling everyone I was trying to ruin him, that I did not even call him on his birthday. Her voice had that tight, careful tone people use when they have already decided what they think and are just going through the motions of pretending to hear your side. I tried to explain that Victor was the one who had initiated the legal process. She cut me off and said she did not want to get in the middle of it. She just thought I should know how it looked. And then she said she had to go, and the line went dead, and I sat there holding my phone with my dinner getting cold in front of me. A few days later, my cousin sent me a message, and that one hurt worse. We had been close growing up. We had spent summers together, shared secrets, had inside jokes that no one else understood. Her message said Victor had cried at a family dinner the week before. Actually cried. She said he had told everyone his own daughter was treating him like a stranger, that all he had ever done was try to provide for me, and that I had sent lawyers after him instead of just talking to him. Then she wrote that maybe I could just talk to him without lawyers, that it felt extreme. I sent her a careful, calm reply explaining that Victor had initiated the legal process. His lawyer sent the first letter. I was only responding. I read it over twice to make sure it did not sound angry or defensive, and then I sent it. She read it, and I could see the indicator that showed she had opened it. She never replied. Eva said the family had believed Victor for 6 years about Ivana. They would believe anything he said because it was easier than admitting they had been wrong about him. Then Mr. Novak called. Victor's lawyer had listed a second attendee for the reassessment meeting, someone named Ivana. I asked why Ivana would be at a child support meeting. He said Victor's lawyer was almost certainly going to argue that Ivana was now Victor's partner, that her financial obligations should be factored in, and that Victor was helping support Ivana's elderly mother, Liesel, which would make Victor look stretched thin and burdened. But by bringing Ivana into this officially, Victor was putting their cohabitation on the legal record, the same cohabitation he had hidden 2 years ago. He was building our case for us. I asked if we should let him bring her. Mr. Novak did not hesitate. He said we should insist on it. The morning of the meeting, I almost did not go. I sat in the parking lot of Mr. Novak's office with my hands on the steering wheel, hearing Victor's voice in my head saying he was still my father. I called Lola. She said I was not doing this to hurt him. I was doing this because he was trying to take something from me that the law said was mine. Go in there. I went in. Mr. Novak was already in the meeting room, his thick folder on the table in front of him. He gave me a small nod and I sat down next to him. 5 minutes later, the door opened and Victor walked in. He was not alone. Behind him was his lawyer, carrying a leather bag. Behind the lawyer was Ivana. She looked older than I remembered, more put together, her hair neat, her posture straight, like she had practiced being in rooms where people did not want her. She did not look at me, not once. Victor was wearing a nice suit, dark and well-fitted, the kind he used to wear to important dinners when I was a kid. He did not look like a man who could barely afford food. He shook Mr. Novak's hand and said he was glad we could do this like adults. Then he sat down and looked at his lawyer, at Ivana, at the folder, at the pens. He did not look at me. He did not greet me. I was sitting 4 feet from my own father and he acted like my chair was empty. It told me everything I needed to know about what this meeting was to him. It was not a conversation between a father and his daughter. It was a negotiation between a man and a problem, and I was the problem. Victor's lawyer began his presentation. He was good. He spoke clearly, calmly, laying out Victor's case like he was reading from a textbook. Victor's income had decreased due to a company restructuring. Victor now supported a household with Ivana, which he framed as a burden, not a benefit. Then he brought up Liesel, Ivana's elderly mother, and said Victor contributed to her care out of family responsibility. He pulled out documents, the same employer letter Victor had shown me at the cafe, plus spreadsheets, monthly expense breakdowns, food, electricity, rent, what he called care costs for Liesel. On paper, it looked convincing. He asked for a reduction below the original amount, saying the current payments were not sustainable. While he spoke, I watched Mr. Novak. He took notes. Quietly, steadily, no expression. He did not frown. He did not lean forward. He just wrote things down like a person taking notes in a lecture. And the longer he stayed silent, the more scared I got. Victor caught my eye and gave me the smallest smile, the smile of a man who thought he had already won. Then Mr. Novak set his pen down. He thanked the lawyer and said he had a few questions, but he was looking directly at Victor. He opened a thick folder full of tabbed pages and laid it flat on the table so everyone could see how full it was. He did not rush. He just let the weight of it speak for itself. His first question was simple. He asked when Victor and Ivana had begun living together. Victor said about a year, casually, like it was barely relevant. Mr. Novak nodded the way someone nods when they already know the answer. He pulled out a single sheet and slid it across the table. A utility bill. Victor's address. Both Victor's name and Ivana's name printed on it. The date was 3.5 years ago. Mr. Novak said, "So when you declared your living expenses 2 years ago as a single occupant, that was not accurate?" Victor's lawyer leaned over and whispered fast in his ear. Victor did not respond. He just stared at the bill, the muscles in his neck working like he was swallowing something that would not go down. Mr. Novak moved on. He picked up the employer letter and asked Victor to confirm his salary had been cut as stated. Victor said yes. Quieter now. Mr. Novak then pulled out a longer document, a publicly available filing from Victor's employer, the kind companies are required to submit, showing that in the same period Victor claimed his salary had been cut, the company had reported increased revenue. Not flat, not stable, increased. Mr. Novak said he was not saying the letter was forged. He was saying he would like to see Victor's actual pay slips for the last 12 months, not a summary letter from someone in his office. Victor's lawyer said he needed a moment to confer with his client. Mr. Novak said of course. The confidence in Victor's face was gone, just gone, like someone had reached behind his eyes and turned off whatever engine had been running in there. Mr. Novak turned to Ivana. His voice got gentler, deliberately. He asked if she was employed. She said yes, the first time she had spoken since walking into the room. He asked what she did. She named her job, something in an office, a full, steady income. He asked if her mother Liesel lived with her and Victor, or in her own home. Ivana hesitated for half a second, then said Liesel lived in her own home nearby. He asked if that meant Victor's contribution to Liesel was a voluntary choice, not a legal obligation, and that Liesel was not a dependent in the household. Ivana looked at Victor for instructions, but Victor was looking at the wood grain on the table. He had no instructions to give. His lawyer cleared his throat and said they needed a break. Mr. Novak said of course. In the hallway, on a bench near the window, Mr. Novak told me Victor's entire case was built on having less money and more obligations. We had just shown he had been hiding a second income in the household for years, that his salary reduction was questionable, and that his claimed dependents did not actually depend on him. If Victor pushed this to a formal hearing, a judge would not just deny the reduction. A judge would look at the real numbers and could increase what Victor owed. He knew that now. We went back and 15 minutes later. Victor was no longer sitting up straight. His suit still looked good, but the man inside it did not. Ivana was staring at a spot on the table like she was trying to disappear into it. Victor's lawyer spoke first. He said his client was willing to withdraw the reassessment request and continue the current agreement. He said it quickly, like he wanted to get through it and get out. But Mr. Novak was not done. He said that was appreciated, but given what had come to light today regarding the undisclosed cohabitation and the questionable income documentation, his client would like a revised agreement reflecting the actual financial picture. The same law that allowed Victor to request a reduction allowed us to request an increase, based on the circumstances Victor had just put on the record by bringing Ivana. The room went still again. Victor looked at me. For the first time in all of it, what was in his eyes was not anger and not charm. It was recognition. He knew his own daughter had outplayed him again, and that he had handed me every card I needed to do it. He had brought Ivana to look weighed down, and all he had done was put the one thing he had been hiding into the official record. The new agreement was drafted there. The payments went up. Victor read it slowly, like he was looking for a way out buried in the paragraphs. There was no way out. He signed it. He did not thank anyone. He did not shake hands. He walked toward the door and stopped beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, the same one he had worn since I was a kid. He said quietly, "You could have just talked to me." I looked at him. The man who taught me to ride a bike and lied to my mother for 6 years and tried to trick me with a hug and a fake letter and a drink he remembered from when I was small. I said, "I did. You lied." He stood there for one more second. Then he walked out. Ivana followed him. His lawyer followed her. I sat back down. I did not feel like I had won. I felt like I had just buried something that had been dead for a long time, and I was only now admitting it. On the drive home, Lola called and asked how it went. I said he signed. She said good. Now stop answering his calls. I said I did not think he was going to call. She said, okay. We stayed on the line without talking for a few minutes, and that was enough. Victor did not call. Not that day, not the next week, not the next month. The payments came in on time. Every single one. The new higher amount, right on schedule, like clockwork. But the phone never rang, and after a while, I stopped checking.